With all the murder, betrayal, and vengeance, a lot of characters didn't make it to the end of Yellowstone. Before you ride again with Marshals, here's a refresher of where everyone ended up. When Yellowstone opened, the Dutton family is comprised of John Dutton and his 3 children, ex-Navy SEAL Kayce, daddy's girl Beth, and adopted child Jamie. Life on the Dutton spread is anything but peaceful. Boardroom deals, bitter family infighting, and plenty of other personal politics regularly turn the place into a war zone. The Dutton's land is rich in resources and a prime place for development, which means it's a target for both corporations who want to take it apart and the members of the Broken Rock Reservation, who want their land back after decades of allowing the Duttons to ranch upon it. Decades ago, a desperate James Dutton was directed by Crow Elder Spotted Eagle to Paradise Valley, his tribe's old hunting grounds. Spotted Eagle told James that he and the rest of the Dutton family could claim the land, build a home there, and bury his dying daughter Elsa in the ground. But there's a catch.
In 7 generations, my people will rise up and take it back from you.
In 7 generations, you can have it.
The prophecy may have aired in the prequel series 1883, but it's one that played out during the course of Yellowstone. John Dutton has long been both the victim and beneficiary of his own hubris, so it's not shocking that he successfully runs for governor of Montana, or that his victory leads to his ultimate downfall. He had to defeat Jamie at the polls to claim victory, a bitter pill for Jamie to swallow even as his father includes him in his administration. Jamie still has no qualms about turning a chunk of the family's land into an airport runway, which means he's easy enough to manipulate. It ultimately turns out to be the worst decision John's ever made on Yellowstone. His policies make him plenty of enemies, so it's shocking but not particularly surprising when he's murdered in the governor's mansion, shot to death in the bathroom. Though it's initially presumed to be a suicide, Beth doesn't believe that's the truth. She enlists Kayce to find out what really happened, and they're eventually able to figure out that Sarah Atwood, Jamie's lover, and a part of the company seeking to buy the Dutton Ranch, hired an assassin to kill John, albeit without Jamie's prior knowledge.
This was you.
This is what you said that you wanted.
They eventually figure out that Jamie learned about the murder and said nothing about it for multiple reasons. Beth doesn't mince words when she tells Jamie what's going to happen to him. Well, she sort of minces words, but the meaning is clear.
Seeing me will be the last thing you ever do alive.
Another important death leading into the series finale is Colby's, a hand on the Dutton Ranch who became an important part of several stories and started a relationship with Tita. Everything changes when young ranch hand Carter gets cornered in a stall by a skittish horse. Colby rides to the rescue and gets Carter out of the pen, but manages to get himself kicked in the process. Colby dies of internal injuries, devastating Tita and his fellow hands. Tita is ultimately at a loss and has no idea how to continue her life on the Dutton Ranch, since everything there reminds her of Colby. But as it turns out, that won't be a problem for too much longer. In the series finale, Kayce and Beth bring John home and decide to bury him on the ranch alongside many of his Dutton ancestors. It's there that Beth makes one final promise to her father.
I will avenge you.
On the business side of things, Kayce and Beth quickly learn that John's seemingly sterling stewardship of the ranch wasn't as rock solid as they thought it was. It turns out the Dutton Ranch is deep in debt, and there's no way they can afford to continue to operate it as is. Desperate to keep the land unspoiled while making sure John's legacy stays intact, Kayce and Beth rack their brains looking for a solution. Ultimately, they auction some high-value horses through fellow rancher Travis Wheatley in an attempt at staving off their debtors. Beth and Jamie's final confrontation has been years in the making. Beth has never forgiven Jamie for taking her to get an abortion in her youth at her request, only for him to agree to a sterilization procedure which has left her infertile. After decades of threats, fighting, and backbiting between them, Beth finally confronts Jamie at his house. A knockdown, drag-out fight ensues, with Beth ultimately coming out on top. With Rip's help, she stabs Jamie to death, and Rip drives his body out to the middle of nowhere to dump it. Beth proceeds to give the police evidence that ties Jamie to the death of John, and frames him for the murder of Sarah as well. She lies and says that Jamie attacked her first, and then ran away in shame. The police come to believe that Jamie has fled prosecution, and the Duttons get away with yet another murder. But Jamie's body is still up on the Wyoming border, ready to be uncovered as Kayce takes up a new life in law enforcement in Marshals. Despite the horse auction, the Dutton ranch is still swimming in debt, and Kayce comes up with a genius solution, selling the ranch undervalued to the Broken Rock Reservation with a few caveats thrown in. He offers it to Thomas Rainwater for $1.25 an acre, the exact price that James Dutton ultimately paid for the land all the way back in the 1800s. It comes to $1.1 million, avoids the inheritance taxes that Kayce and Beth couldn't afford, and clears the ranch's debt. Rainwater knows it's a bad deal for the Duttons, but that doesn't mean he's above taking it.
Congratulations. You just made the worst land deal since my people sold Manhattan.
Naturally, Kayce's too clever to simply let Rainwater have exactly what he wants. They both agree that the land should stay just as pristine as both Thomas and John have always wanted it to be, and that the Dutton family's cemetery shouldn't be moved. They also come together to make sure that Kayce's little home with Monica and Tate stays intact. With the ranch sold, Dutton's hands now have to find new places to live and work, in spite of their brands and odes of loyalty to John and his family. Tita decides to move to Texas and take a job with Travis on his ranch. It seems to be a good move for her, not in the least because it gets her away from Montana and the memories of Colby. Ethan and Jake take jobs in New Mexico at the N-Bar Ranch, while longtime aspiring singer Walker gets back together with his girlfriend Laramie to travel the country. Only Lloyd, the old salt who's given everything he can to the Dutton way of life, has an unclear purpose in this world. He retires from his job as a cowboy and decides not to go with Rip and Beth to their new home as a hand. One of the most interesting endings is given to Ryan, who rejected a real relationship with country singer Abby when they last met. He chose to stay loyal to the Duttons at the time, and have been serving as a hand ever since. But he's given a second chance with Abby when she happens to stage a concert in his town and realizes that he made a mistake.
Damn you cowboys. You'll write poems about a horse, but you can't tell a woman how you feel.
They reunite, and suddenly his plans of rootless wandering through life change. He seals the deal by staying and watching a play with some of his fellow cowboys. The twosome are happy for their second chance, and like most of the regular couples on Yellowstone, get to ride off into the sunset together, metaphorically at least. Beth and Rip take the money they got out of the deal and build a new ranch for themselves. Beth buys property 40 miles west of Dillon, Montana. The two of them settle into semi-tranquil domestic bliss, which is quite a switch-up for Beth. And surprisingly, they're not alone when they embark on that life together. After seasons of fighting any sort of maternal or paternal attachment to Carter, Beth and Rip officially take him with them. The show never explicitly says whether they have adopted him, or if he is simply working with the two of them as a hand. But he's living on their new ranch when we last see him. Since Beth, Rip, and Carter will all be appearing in their own Paramount Plus spin-off, The Dutton Ranch, in 2026, this piece likely won't last. But it's definitely a hopeful note to close Beth and Rip's story out on. Ultimately, the show ends with a voiceover by Elsa Dutton, which airs over a montage of various characters going about their new lives. Carter and Rip get started on their new farm, while Kayce and Tate prepare their ranch and the Broken Rock Reservation prepares to tear down the bunkhouse and home that the Duttons built. As Elsa's voiceover explains, the prophecy that Spotted Eagle told James all those years ago has finally come to pass.
My father was told they would come for this land, and he promised to return it. Nowhere was that promise written.
She goes on to explain aloud how impossible it is to tame and own wild spaces. The Duttons learn that lesson the hard way, even as they try to keep what they had free from development and invaders. In the end, they let it go to help it thrive, a decision that Elsa and every other long-lost Dutton would likely approve of.